The Arizona Territory, 1877. Dust swirled across the barren landscape as Tahoe, a disgraced Apache warrior, crested the hill. His eyes, once fierce with battle pride, now held only shadows. Below him lay a sight that stopped even his hardened heart. A woman collapsed in the dirt, her thin arm curled protectively around a small child, both barely breathing, both abandoned by a world that had no place for the broken. Kneeling beside them, Tahoe placed a weathered hand over the woman's chest, feeling the faint flutter of life beneath his palm. Would this be his path to redemption, or another soul he couldn't save? "Give me your heart," he whispered in words almost forgotten to him. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 3 summers before, Tahoe had been many horses, honored warrior of the Chiricahua. His scarred war shield, adorned with eagle feathers and painted with the lightning symbol of his first vision quest, had marked him as a protector of his people. Now that shield lay buried beneath a lightning-struck pine, much like the man he once was. The memory returned to him unbidden as he carried the unconscious woman and her child to his modest camp. The raid had been meant as retribution against the white settlers who had poisoned their water source. 12 warriors, led by Chief Black Knife, rode at dawn. Tahoe among them, his face painted for war, his spirit prepared for blood. The homestead came into view as the sun climbed. Smoke from morning fires curled into the sky. Black Knife gave the signal, and they descended like thunder upon the settlement. But what awaited them was not the band of murderous men they sought. Instead, they found families, women hanging laundry, children feeding chickens, old men smoking pipes on porches. "These are not the ones," Tahoe had said, lowering his rifle. "These are not the water poisoners." Black Knife's face hardened. "All white eyes are guilty. They take our land. They kill our children with their diseases. Today they pay." The first shot came from Black Knife's rifle. A woman fell, laundry still clutched in her hands. The others followed their chief's lead, bullets tearing through the morning calm. All except Tahoe, who turned his rifle toward the sky. "No!" he shouted. "There is no honor in this." He rode between his brothers and a fleeing mother, her child in her arms, not unlike the woman and child he now carried through the desert. His action had given the settlers precious moments to seek shelter, had reduced the day's death count from dozens to 7. For this mercy, his people named him traitor. The tribal council gathered that night, 13 elders seated in a circle around the central fire. Tahoe stood before them, still wearing the blood of a warrior brother he had wounded in stopping the massacre. "You have broken your oath to the people," said Spotted Owl, the eldest among them. "You have raised your hand against your brothers to protect the enemy." "I raised my hand to protect our honor," Tahoe replied, his voice steady despite the weight pressing upon his chest. "We are warriors, not murderers of children." The debate lasted until the moon reached its peak. Some spoke for Tahoe, noting his 20 years of loyal service. Others demanded his death, claiming his betrayal endangered them all. In the end, Chief Black Knife delivered the verdict. "You will be Ghost Walker," he pronounced. "Neither living nor dead among us. Your name will not be spoken. Your deeds will be forgotten. Take what you can carry and go. If you return, you will be killed as an enemy." At dawn, they stripped him of his warrior paint, broke his bow, and cut his hair. The long braids that had marked his status now scattered on the ground like dead snakes. They gave him a knife, a water skin, and the clothes on his back. His mother would not look at him. His wife turned away. Only his sister's son, Small Deer, dared to press something into his palm as he departed. A turquoise pendant, the same one that now hung around Tahoe's neck. For 3 years, he had wandered the edges of the territory, taking odd jobs from settlers brave or desperate enough to hire an Apache. He trapped and traded, slept under stars and in caves, spoke little, and trusted no one. The whites called him Joe when they needed to call him anything. He answered to it like a dog answers to whatever name its new master chooses. Until today, he had been nothing but a shadow moving through the world, leaving no trace, forming no bonds, nurturing no hope. Now, as he laid the woman and child on his blankets, something long dormant stirred within him. The responsibility felt foreign yet familiar, like a weapon once mastered but long unused. The woman moaned softly as he trickled water between her cracked lips. The child's eyes fluttered open, dark eyes that showed no fear, only exhaustion and hunger. Tahoe reached for his meager store of jerky, offering a small piece to the girl who accepted it with trembling fingers. "Eat slow," he said, his voice rough from disuse. "Make it last." By morning, the woman's fever had broken. She sat up slowly, clutching the blanket to her chest, eyes darting wildly until they found her daughter curled beside her, sleeping peacefully. Only then did she notice Tahoe, motionless as stone, watching from across the small fire. "My child," she whispered, her voice like dry leaves. "She lives." Tahoe nodded once. "She is strong." The woman's shoulders slumped with relief. She reached into the neckline of her tattered dress and pulled out a small, folded photograph. A family portrait taken in a Boston studio. 3 figures in stiff formal poses. Herself younger and well-fed, a stern-faced man in a suit, and an infant on her lap. The edges were torn and the image faded, but she handled it like the most precious of treasures. "I'm Emily," she said finally. "This is Sarah." She smoothed her daughter's matted hair with gentle fingers. "We've come a long way to die in this desert." Tahoe said nothing, but offered a cup of water. She drank carefully, measuring each sip as one accustomed to rationing. "You are Apache," she said. "Not a question." "Was Apache," he corrected. "Now nothing." Emily studied him, noting the turquoise pendant, the only sign of his heritage he still displayed. "You saved us." "Why?" Tahoe's gaze drifted to the sleeping child. "No one should die alone in dust." Over the next hour, as the morning sun climbed higher, Emily's story emerged in fragments between bouts of coughing. Boston had been home, a respectable life as the wife of a merchant. Widowed young when influenza took her husband, leaving her with an infant daughter and mounting debts. Her parents gone, her husband's family unwilling to help, she had turned to the church where she met Thomas Blackwood. "A preacher," she said, with a bitter smile. "He spoke so beautifully of California, paradise where we could start anew. He married me within a month." The wagon train had departed in spring with 12 families bound for Sacramento. Thomas had been charming until Denver, controlling by Fort Bridger, and cruel by the time they reached Arizona. When their wagon broke an axle, he'd beaten Emily for the first time, blaming her for bringing too many possessions. "He left us 3 days ago," she said, absently touching a bruise on her cheek. "Took the mule most of our supplies. Said we were holding him back." Her voice hardened. "He left his Bible, though. I burned a page each night to keep warm." Sarah stirred then, her small face lighting with recognition when she saw Tahoe. She showed no fear of him, unlike most white children who had been raised on tales of savage Apaches. "The quiet man," she said, her voice small but clear. "You gave me meat." Tahoe nodded, offering her another small piece of jerky. She took it with a solemn nod of thanks, then broke it in half, offering a portion back to him. The gesture made something shift in his chest. "We should leave this place," he said abruptly. "Not safe here. Too open." Emily's face tightened with worry. "We can't travel far. Sarah needs—" "I carry her," Tahoe interrupted. "You walk when you can. Rest when you can't." "Where would we go?" Emily asked, uncertainty in every line of her body. "Canyon to the north. Water there. Good place to hide." "Hide from what?" Tahoe's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Everything. As Emily helped Sarah stand on wobbly legs, Tahoe gathered his few possessions: knife, water skin, flint stones, a small cooking pot, and a pouch of dried food. He worked methodically, his movements economical, like a man who had packed camp 1,000 times before. Emily watched him, this strange, silent man who had whispered those words to her when she was half-conscious. "Give me your heart." She still didn't understand their meaning, but as she looked at her daughter accepting a drink from his hands, she felt the first fragile tendril of trust take root. "We're ready," she said, squaring her thin shoulders. Tahoe looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. A woman worn to bone by hardship yet standing straight, protecting her child with nothing but will. He gave a single nod of respect. "Then we go," he said, and shouldered his pack. They traveled through the morning heat, Tahoe carrying Sarah on his back while Emily followed, stopping often to rest in whatever shade they could find. The child's arms wrapped trustingly around his neck, her breath warm against his shoulder. So light, this small one, like carrying a bird with hollow bones. By midday, they reached a cluster of cottonwoods marking a seasonal creek bed. The ground beneath the trees was cooler, covered with fallen leaves that rustled like whispers as they settled onto them. Emily collapsed, her face gray with exhaustion. "Rest now," Tahoe said. "Water soon." He placed Sarah gently beside her mother, then moved to the creek bed. Though the surface was dry, he began to dig. His hands worked with practiced efficiency, scooping away layers of sand until moisture appeared, then deepening the hole until water seeped in. Muddy at first, then gradually clearing. When he returned with the filled water skin, Emily was sitting up, attempting to comb Sarah's tangled hair with her fingers. The child winced but didn't complain. "Thank you," Emily said, accepting the water. Her voice carried the careful politeness of her Boston upbringing, incongruous here in the wilderness. She helped Sarah drink first before taking her own share. As the afternoon shadows lengthened, Tahoe gathered deadwood and kindled a small, nearly smokeless fire. From his pack, he produced a handful of roots and a small pouch of dried meat that he added to the cooking pot with water. The resulting stew was thin but nourishing, filling the air with an unfamiliar herbal aroma. "What is this plant?" Emily asked, sampling the stew cautiously. "Desert potato," Tahoe replied. "Good for strength." Sarah ate with surprising appetite, color gradually returning to her hollow cheeks. When she finished, she examined Tahoe with unabashed curiosity. "Your hair is different," she observed. "Not like the pictures of Indians in my book." Tahoe's hand unconsciously moved to his cropped hair, a persistent reminder of his shame. "Not warrior now," he said simply. "Sarah," Emily chided gently, "don't be impolite." But Tahoe shook his head. "Questions are good. Child should know who keeps her safe." While Emily rested, Tahoe fashioned a small cradle from willow branches, his large hands surprisingly deft with the slender, flexible wood. Sarah watched the creation take shape, eyes wide with wonder. "Is that for a baby?" she asked. "For you," Tahoe replied. "To sleep tonight. Keep from ground creatures." The girl's face brightened. "Like a nest." A ghost of a smile touched Tahoe's lips. "Like nest." As twilight descended, Tahoe constructed a simple shelter using branches and his blanket. The space was small but would protect them from the night's chill. Emily watched him work, gathering her strength. "You've done this before," she observed. "Helped others, I mean." Tahoe paused. "Was healer once, before warrior. And now," he considered her question, hands still moving, weaving branches together. "Now survivor. Like you." That night, Emily and Sarah slept in the shelter while Tahoe kept watch beneath the stars. The desert transformed after sunset. Coyotes called in the distance, night birds swooped overhead, and small creatures rustled through the underbrush. To untrained ears, These sounds might seem threatening, but Tahoe read them like a familiar language, alert only to disruptions in the natural pattern. Near midnight, Sarah emerged from the shelter, rubbing her eyes. "Bad dreams," she explained when Tahoe turned to her. He nodded in understanding and patted the ground beside him. She settled there, looking up at the vast expanse of stars. "There are so many," she whispered. "More than in Boston." "Same stars," Tahoe said. "Just see them better here." "Do they have names?" Tahoe pointed to various constellations, giving their Apache names in a soft voice. Sarah repeated each one carefully, her pronunciation earnest. When her eyes began to droop, he carried her back to the willow cradle. As he tucked the small blanket around her, she caught his hand. "Will you stay with us tomorrow too?" The question hung in the night air. Tahoe had planned to guide them to the next settlement, then return to his solitude. But looking at the child's trusting face, he found his resolve wavering. "Yes," he said finally. "Tomorrow too." Sarah smiled sleepily. "Good," she murmured, and was asleep almost instantly. Tahoe resumed his vigil, something unfamiliar, stirring in his chest, purpose, perhaps, or hope. Dawn broke in ribbons of copper and gold across the eastern sky. Tahoe had already packed their meager belongings and extinguished all traces of their fire. Emily looked stronger after a night's rest, though fatigue still shadowed her eyes. Sarah bounced with surprising energy, clutching the small cloth doll Tahoe had fashioned for her from scraps before sunrise. "How far?" Emily asked, tying back her hair with a strip of fabric. Tahoe knelt in the dirt, drawing a crude map with his finger. "Here now," he said, marking their position. "Canyon here," he continued, indicating a spot to the northwest. "One day walking, maybe two. And it's safe there? From whatever we're hiding from." Tahoe's expression remained impassive. "Safer. Good water. Caves for shelter." He hesitated. "Few know of it." They set out as the day's heat began to build, Tahoe setting a pace that Emily could maintain. He carried Sarah when the terrain grew difficult, but encouraged the child to walk when possible, teaching her to recognize useful plants along the way. "This one for thirst," he explained, showing her a cactus with edible flesh. "This one for washing." He pointed to a plant with roots that created suds when crushed and mixed with water. Sarah absorbed each lesson with serious attention, repeating the Apache names after him. By midday, they encountered their first obstacle, a wide arroyo, its sides steep and crumbling, too dangerous to descend with a child, too wide to cross directly. "We follow north," Tahoe decided after surveying the landscape. "Find crossing place." The detour added miles to their journey, but Tahoe's judgment proved sound. By late afternoon, they found a natural bridge where flash floods had toppled a massive cottonwood across the gap. Emily eyed the makeshift crossing with apprehension. "I'll carry Sarah," Tahoe assured her. "You follow. Step where I step." He crossed first with the child clinging to his back, her face buried against his shoulder. The tree creaked but held firm. On the far side, he set Sarah down and returned halfway to offer Emily his hand. She took it without hesitation, her fingers cold despite the desert heat. As sunset approached, Tahoe grew increasingly alert, scanning the horizon frequently. His tension communicated itself to Emily, who kept Sarah closer to her side. "What is it?" she whispered when he suddenly raised his hand, signaling them to stop. "Riders," he said, pointing to a distant dust cloud. "4, maybe 5. Indians?" Fear tightened Emily's voice. "White men. Military maybe. Or prospectors." Neither possibility seemed to reassure him. They took cover in a cluster of boulders, waiting silently as the riders passed a half-mile to the south. Through a gap in the rocks, Emily caught glimpses of men in dusty clothes, rifles across their saddles. "Bounty hunters," Tahoe said once they'd passed. Looking for Apache. Or deserters. Would they harm us? Emily asked, her arm protectively around Sarah. Tahoe's gaze was steady. Woman and child alone with Apache? Yes, they would harm. The encounter added urgency to their journey. They continued until well after darkness fell, guided by starlight. Sarah, exhausted, slept in Tahoe's arms as he carried her the final miles. When Emily stumbled for the third time, he finally called a halt. Rest now. Canyon close. Morning will be soon enough. Their camp that night was minimal. No fire, no shelter beyond a shallow depression between two rocks. They shared the last of their food, a few strips of jerky and some dried berries. Sarah slept immediately, but Emily remained awake, watching Tahoe as he took the first watch. Those men, she said quietly. They're looking for you, aren't they? Tahoe's silence was answer enough. What did you do that made you so hunted? He touched his pendant, a gesture she'd noticed he made when troubled. Chose wrong side, or right side. Same thing sometimes. Emily studied him in the moonlight. His watchful eyes, the set of his shoulders that never fully relaxed, the gentleness of his hands when he adjusted the blanket over Sarah. I don't believe you're a bad man, she said finally. Tahoe looked at her, really looked at her, as if seeing past her exhaustion and fear to something deeper. Not bad, not good, just am. Well, Emily said, settling beside her daughter. Whatever you are, I'm grateful for it. In the first light of dawn, they crested a ridge and Tahoe pointed to a narrow opening in the red stone cliffs ahead. Canyon, he said simply, but the word carried weight, shelter, safety, possibility. For the first time since finding them, Tahoe allowed himself a small smile. Home now, he added, and led them down toward the hidden entrance. The canyon embraced them like ancient cupped hands. Towering sandstone walls blocked the harshest sun while trapping the day's warmth for cool nights. A small spring bubbled from the rock face, feeding a pool of clear water before disappearing underground. Cottonwoods and willows clustered around the water, offering shade and building materials. Birds nested in the high crevices, their songs echoing in the quiet air. It's beautiful, Emily breathed as they entered the hidden sanctuary. Tahoe nodded, setting Sarah down to explore. Good place. Protected. The first day they simply rested. Emily and Sarah bathed in the pool while Tahoe hunted, returning with 2 rabbits and a handful of wild onions. That night, they ate better than they had in weeks, the fire reflecting off the canyon walls as stars appeared in the narrow strip of sky above. With morning came purpose. Tahoe surveyed the canyon's resources with a practiced eye, then began gathering stones of similar size. Emily joined him without being asked, forming a line to pass the rocks to where he worked. What are we building? She asked. Hearth first, he explained. Center of home. By midday, a circular stone fire pit took shape, carefully constructed to contain flames while reflecting heat outward. Sarah helped by collecting smaller stones to line the edge, arranging them in patterns that pleased her eye. Now walls, Tahoe said, pointing to a natural alcove in the canyon wall. Shelter there. They worked through the afternoon, Tahoe showing Emily how to weave branches between upright posts to form flexible walls. He demonstrated how to mix mud with grass to create a natural plaster, sealing the gaps against wind and rain. Sarah's small hands proved perfect for patching the lower sections, her face serious with concentration as she mimicked Tahoe's technique. As dusk approached, they had completed 2 walls connecting to the natural rock face, creating a simple but effective shelter. Inside, Tahoe built raised sleeping platforms using layers of branches covered with soft grasses. Emily unfolded their blankets across them, creating the first real beds they'd had since leaving. The wagon train. Will we stay here long? Sarah asked as Tahoe kindled the hearth fire for the first time, sending a column of smoke up through a natural chimney in the rock. Winter coming, he replied. Cold in mountains soon. Snow sometimes. Snow, Sarah clapped her hands. I remember snow from Boston. Emily's face grew shadowed at the mention of their former home. We need more supplies if we're to winter here. Blankets, food stores. Tahoe nodded. Trading post 3 days south. Can get what we need. With what? Emily asked practically. We have nothing to trade. In answer, Tahoe reached into his pack and withdrew a small leather pouch. Opening it, he revealed several small nuggets of gold. Not a fortune, but enough to barter for necessities. Found in creek 2 summers ago, he explained. Keep for need. Emily touched one of the nuggets with wondering fingers. You could have bought passage to anywhere with these. Started a new life. No place for Apache alone, Tahoe said simply. Better in wild. That night, after Sarah had fallen asleep, Emily and Tahoe sat beside the fire. The completed hearth cast a warm glow on the stone walls, transforming the simple shelter into something that felt remarkably like home. Why did you help us? Emily asked, the question that had lingered since their first encounter. You could have passed by. Many would have. Tahoe was silent so long she thought he might not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, almost reverent. 3 winters ago, when tribe cast me out, I wandered without purpose. Nearly died first month. His fingers traced the turquoise pendant at his neck. Found me like I found you. Woman, old one from different tribe. She gave water, food, medicine. Said my spirit not finished walking. She saved you. He nodded. When strong again, I asked why help enemy. She said, no enemies when death walks beside both. She taught me healing plants again, like when I was boy. Emily's eyes reflected the firelight. And where is she now, this woman? Died before spring. I buried her Apache way. He looked into the flames. She gave purpose back. Small one like you, he nodded toward the sleeping Sarah. Reminds me of that debt. Emily reached across the space between them, her hand resting lightly on his forearm. Thank you for telling me. Tahoe didn't pull away from her touch. Instead, he turned his hand palm up, their fingers almost but not quite interlacing. Tomorrow, he said, we make home stronger. 2 weeks passed in a rhythm of work and rest. The shelter expanded, gaining a 3rd wall and a proper door of woven branches. Tahoe taught Emily to set snares for rabbits and to identify edible plants, while Sarah collected pine nuts and berries, her small hands nimble and quick. Each day, their movements grew more coordinated, 3 separate beings gradually becoming a unit. On the morning Tahoe planned to leave for the trading post, Emily awoke to find him painting symbols on the rock face beside their dwelling. Protection signs, he explained, seeing her questioning look. Keep safe while I'm gone. Emily had grown stronger, her face filling out, her hands now calloused from work. Still, the prospect of Tahoe's absence sent a flutter of anxiety through her chest. How long will you be away? 6 days. Maybe 7. He paused in his painting. You have food, water. No one comes here. We'll be fine, she assured him, more confident than she felt. Won't we, Sarah? The girl nodded solemnly from where she sat grinding acorns into meal, a skill Tahoe had taught her. We'll keep the hearth fire, she promised, using a phrase she'd learned from him. The Apache way of saying they would maintain their home. Tahoe departed at dawn the next day, carrying only his knife, the gold nuggets, and a small pack with dried food. Emily and Sarah stood at the canyon entrance, watching until his figure disappeared among the distant rocks. The first 2 days passed uneventfully. Emily kept Sarah busy with chores and simple lessons, writing letters in the dirt and teaching songs from her childhood. At night, they told stories by the fire, Sarah insisting that all tales include a brave Apache warrior. On the 3rd day, as they collected firewood near the canyon entrance, Sarah suddenly froze. Someone's coming, she whispered. Emily grabbed her daughter's hand, retreating toward their shelter. Then she heard it too, the creaking of wagon wheels, the jingling of harness bells. Not Tahoe, who traveled light and silent. Inside, she urged Sarah, pushing the girl behind the door. Stay quiet. Heart pounding, Emily took up the knife Tahoe had left them and positioned herself between the approaching sounds and her daughter. Through the canyon opening came not the expected threat, but a weather-beaten wagon pulled by an elderly mule. At the reins sat a white-bearded man who might have been 60 or 80, his skin tanned to leather by desert sun. "Hello, the canyon," he called out, stopping the wagon. "Samuel Weaver, trading goods and news. Anybody about?" Emily remained hidden, watching as the old man climbed down with surprising agility and began to unhitch his mule. "I know someone's here," he continued conversationally. "Saw the smoke from your fire. Don't mean no harm. Just making my regular rounds." When Emily still didn't respond, he shrugged and began setting up a small camp. From his wagon, he unloaded an astonishing array of goods, bolts of fabric, sacks of flour and coffee, tools, blankets, even books. He arranged them with practiced efficiency, then sat on a crate and lit a pipe. "Got fresh apples from up north," he announced to the apparently empty canyon. "First of the season. Mighty sweet." At the mention of apples, Sarah gasped. The sound echoed slightly, and Samuel's head turned toward their shelter. "Got candies too," he added with a smile. "For little folks who might be listening." Emily hesitated, then slowly emerged, keeping Sarah behind her. "We're not alone here," she said firmly. "Our protector will return soon." Samuel nodded, unperturbed. "That'd be the Apache fellow, I expect. Tall drink of water, doesn't talk much." Emily's surprise must have shown on her face. "Ran into him at Wilson's post yesterday," Samuel explained. "He was buying supplies paid in gold. Wilson ain't fond of Indians, but money speaks clearer than prejudice." He puffed his pipe. "Your man asked about news. Seemed concerned about army patrols." "He's not my man," Emily said automatically, though the denial felt strange on her tongue. "He helped us when we were abandoned." Samuel's eyes were kind but shrewd. "Unusual arrangement, if you don't mind my saying." "It's temporary," Emily replied, though she realized she no longer believed this herself. Sarah peeked around her mother's skirts. "Do you really have apples?" The old trader grinned, revealing surprisingly good teeth. "That I do, little miss." He selected a perfect red apple from a crate and held it out. "Consider it a welcome gift." Emily finally relaxed enough to approach the wagon, Sarah skipping ahead to accept the treat. As the child bit into the fruit with sounds of delight, Samuel opened a leather-bound book. "I keep a record of all the settlements on my route," he explained, showing Emily pages of neat handwriting. "Trade goods, news, messages. Helps folks stay connected out here." He tapped a recent entry. "Army's increased patrols. Looking for Apache renegades after a raid on a supply train near Fort Bowie." Emily's blood chilled. "Renegades?" Samuel nodded grimly. "Bad business. 6 soldiers killed." He lowered his voice. "They're offering bounties now, dead or alive." Tahoe returned at twilight 2 days later, his approach so silent that Emily didn't notice him until he appeared in the doorway. His pack bulged with supplies, but his face was drawn, a fresh tension evident in the set of his shoulders. "You're hurt," Emily said immediately, seeing how he favored his left side. "Small thing," he dismissed, though his breathing was shallow. "Old wound opened." Sarah rushed to embrace him, oblivious to his discomfort. "We had a visitor, a trader with apples and stories." Tahoe's gaze shot to Emily, who nodded. "Samuel Weaver. He seems harmless enough, an old man who trades along established routes. He left yesterday." "What did you tell him?" Tahoe asked, setting down his pack with controlled movements that couldn't quite hide his pain. "Nothing important," Emily assured him. though he already knew about you. Said he saw you at Wilson's post. Tahoe grunted, neither surprised nor pleased. News travels. Not good. He mentioned increased army patrols, Emily said carefully. Something about Apache renegades and bounties. Sit, Emily commanded, pointing to his sleeping platform. Let me see this small thing. Reluctantly, Tahoe lowered himself to the bed. With practiced motions that spoke of a lifetime managing a household, Emily heated water over the fire and gathered clean rags. Sarah hovered nearby, solemn-faced and concerned. Can I help? The child asked. Tahoe nodded. Medicine pouch. In my pack. Sarah retrieved a small leather bag decorated with faded beadwork. Inside were various dried plants and powders, Tahoe's healing supplies from his days as a tribal medicine man. The yellow one, he instructed, and white root. As Emily helped him remove his shirt, she gasped at the angry red gash along his ribs. Clearly reopened from a previous injury, the edges inflamed. How did this happen? She asked, gently cleaning the wound. Knife. Long ago. His eyes darkened with memory. Day of banishment. Emily worked in silence, applying the healing pouch's contents as Tahoe directed. Sarah assisted by grinding the dried plants into powder, her small face intense with concentration. You were a healer before you were a warrior, Emily remembered as she dressed the wound. Why did you change paths? Tahoe's gaze fixed on the fire. Young man wants glory, sees only victory, not cost. He touched the bandage Emily had just applied. Learned cost too late. The wound tended. Emily prepared a simple meal from their new supplies. Beans, dried fruit, even coffee, a luxury she hadn't tasted since Denver. As they ate, Tahoe gradually relaxed, the lines of pain in his face softening. I need to ask you something, Emily said after Sarah had fallen asleep. Something I've wondered since we met. Tahoe waited, his dark eyes reflecting firelight. Those words you spoke when you found us, give me your heart. What did they mean? His hand moved to the turquoise pendant, a gesture she now recognized as his way of centering himself. Old Apache sang, when someone is lost, in body or spirit, these words offer connection. Not taking, but joining. My heart beats, yours can too. It's beautiful, Emily said softly. Your turn, Tahoe said, surprising her. Your husband, the one who left you. He did more than abandon. It wasn't a question, but Emily answered anyway. Thomas was a different man than he pretended to be in Boston. The journey changed him, or revealed him. Her hand unconsciously touched her cheek where a faded bruise still lingered. The first time he hit me was in Kansas. I dropped a cup of his coffee. Tahoe's expression didn't change, but something dangerous flickered in his eyes. After that, any excuse was enough, Emily continued, her voice steady despite the painful memories. Too much salt in the stew. Sarah crying at night. The wagon wheel breaking. As if every misfortune were my doing. Why stay? Where could I go? Alone in strange country with a child. Emily's laugh held no humor. Besides, he was careful to leave no marks where others might see. And he could be charming when it suited him. Always apologizing, promising to change. Some men, Tahoe said quietly, should not live long lives. The blunt statement hung in the air between them. Emily should have been shocked, but instead found herself nodding. The night before he left us, she said. He was raging about the broken axle. I truly believed he might kill us both. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Part of me was relieved when he abandoned us, even knowing we might die in the desert. Tahoe reached across the space between them, his calloused hand covering hers. Not die, he said firmly. Not while I breathe. That night, for the first time since her husband's desertion, Emily slept without fear. Autumn settled over the canyon, painting the cottonwoods gold and bringing cooler nights. Their shelter had evolved into a proper home. Walls plastered with clay, a door that could be secured, woven grass mats covering the floor. Emily had created curtains from fabric Tahoe brought from the trading post, adding unexpected color to their dwelling. Sarah had her own sleeping area now, decorated with pretty stones and feathers she collected. Tahoe rose before dawn each morning to check his trap lines and hunt. Emily gathered wild foods and tended the small garden of hardy vegetables they'd started near the spring. Sarah helped with both, her knowledge of plants and tracking growing daily under Tahoe's patient instruction. Their lives had found a rhythm, fragile perhaps, but sustaining. One clear morning, as frost still clung to the shadows, Tahoe returned early from his dawn patrol. His expression was grim, his movements precise with controlled urgency. "What is it?" Emily asked, setting aside the basket she was weaving. "Tracks," he replied. "5 men on horseback, camped 3 miles south." Emily's hand went instinctively to her throat. "Soldiers, not military." Tahoe's jaw tightened. "Hunters, maybe, or worse." He moved with swift efficiency, gathering his knife and the old army pistol he'd traded for at Wilson's post, a weapon he'd never carried before today. "Stay here," he instructed. "Keep Sarah inside. No fire, no noise." He pressed a brass button into Emily's palm. "Found this near their camp. Cavalry uniform, but no soldiers travel in small groups here." Emily studied the button, its eagle insignia tarnished but recognizable. Deserters, maybe, or men who killed soldiers to take their guns. Either possibility was equally dangerous. "Let me come with you," Emily said suddenly. 2 sets of eyes. "No." Tahoe's voice was firm. "Sarah needs you. I move faster alone." Before departing, he showed Emily how to wedge the door shut from inside and where he'd hidden a second knife beneath her sleeping platform. His preparations carried a weight that frightened her more than his words. "I'll return by midday," he promised. "If not," he hesitated. "Take Sarah east. Follow morning sun until you reach river. Samuel's winter camp is there." Emily caught his arm. "You will come back." Tahoe covered her hand with his own, a rare gesture of intimacy. Then he was gone, slipping away like a shadow. The morning stretched endlessly. Emily kept Sarah occupied with quiet games and whispered stories, explaining they were playing a special hiding game. The child seemed to sense the gravity beneath the pretense, keeping her questions to murmurs. Midday passed with no sign of Tahoe. Emily's anxiety grew with each passing hour, her mind conjuring terrible scenarios. By late afternoon, she had begun gathering essentials for the journey east, though her heart rebelled at the thought of leaving without him. As dusk approached, Sarah suddenly stiffened beside her. "Someone's coming," she whispered, her hearing sharper than Emily's. Not Tahoe. Different steps. Emily's blood froze. She rushed Sarah to the hiding place they'd prepared, a small natural alcove behind their sleeping platforms, concealed by hanging blankets. "Remember what we practiced," she whispered, pressing a kiss to her daughter's forehead. "Not a sound until I call you." Knife in hand, Emily positioned herself beside the door, listening. The footsteps were uneven, stumbling. A voice called out, not threatening but strained. "Emily? Sarah?" Tahoe's voice, but wrong somehow. Cautiously, Emily eased the door open. Tahoe stood swaying in the gathering darkness, one hand pressed to his side where a dark stain spread across his shirt. "You're hurt." She rushed forward to support him. "Not bad," he managed, though his face was gray with pain. 3 men. Deserters taking Apache scalps for bounty money. 3. Emily helped him inside. "You said there were 5. 2 ran." Tahoe's voice was tight as she eased him onto his platform. "Others won't follow. Ever." Emily didn't ask for details as she cut away his bloodied shirt. The wound was a bullet graze along his ribs, painful but not life-threatening if infection could be prevented. She worked quickly, cleaning and binding the injury with practiced hands. "They know about Canyon now," Tahoe said as she finished. "Not safe anymore." "We'll leave," Emily said firmly. "Head east as you planned." Tahoe shook his head. "Too dangerous. Winter coming. Sarah too small for journey now." He caught Emily's hand. "I lead them away. You stay here, hidden." "No." The word came out sharper than Emily intended. Sarah peeked out from her hiding place, eyes wide at her mother's tone. "We stay together," Emily continued, gentler but equally determined. "The three of us." Tahoe's expression softened as Sarah crept to his side, her small hand patting his arm with solemn concern. "Does it hurt very bad?" the child asked. "Had worse," he assured her with a ghost of a smile. That night, after Sarah slept, Emily kept watch while Tahoe rested fitfully, fever beginning to build. Outside, the wind carried the distant howl of coyotes, or perhaps something else. Emily clutched the knife tighter and moved closer to Tahoe's side. "We face together," she whispered, echoing his words from weeks before. "Not while I breathe." 3 days passed before Tahoe's fever broke. Emily barely slept, dividing her time between tending his wound, caring for Sarah, and standing watch. On the 4th morning, she woke to find Tahoe sitting up, clear-eyed and alert despite his weakness. "You should be resting," she scolded, though relief softened her voice. "Have rested enough," he replied, wincing slightly as he reached for his shirt. Sarah bounded in from outside where she'd been checking the snares Tahoe had taught her to set. "You're better," she exclaimed, dropping her gathered kindling to throw her arms around him. Tahoe's face registered pain at the impact, but his arm came around the child in a gentle embrace. "Strong again soon," he promised her. "Then we make plans." The question of their future hung unspoken throughout the day as they resumed their routines. Emily noticed how Tahoe moved with deliberate care, conserving his strength while assessing their supplies and defenses. His eyes frequently scanned the canyon entrance, a new wariness in his gaze. That evening, as Emily prepared a stew from rabbit and wild onions, the familiar jingle of harness bells echoed through the canyon. Tahoe was on his feet instantly, knife in hand. "Stay inside," he ordered, but Emily was already following him out, her own knife concealed in the folds of her skirt. Samuel's wagon appeared at the canyon entrance, the old trader raising his hand in greeting. "Just me, folks, bringing news and necessities." Tahoe relaxed fractionally but kept himself positioned between the wagon and their dwelling. Emily laid a hand on his arm, feeling the tension in his muscles. "He's been nothing but kind," she murmured. Tahoe's expression remained guarded. "Kind not always means safe." Samuel, seemingly oblivious to their caution, unhitched his mule and began arranging his goods with the same cheerful efficiency as before. From his wagon, he produced a small wooden horse, expertly carved and polished smooth. "For the little lady," he explained, holding it out to Sarah, who had peered around the doorway. "Carved it myself during the long evenings." Sarah looked to Tahoe for permission before accepting the gift with solemn thanks. She retreated inside, whispering to the wooden horse as if introducing it to her other treasures. "Heard about trouble west of here," Samuel commented, lighting his pipe. "3 men found dead near Coyote Creek. Army deserters by their gear." Emily felt Tahoe stiffen beside her. "Bad men die in desert all the time," Tahoe said flatly. Samuel nodded, unperturbed. "That they do. Desert has its own justice." He puffed thoughtfully. "Though the other 2 from their party are making noise in every saloon from here to Tucson, claiming it was Apache devils, putting together a hunting group." Emily's heart sank. "How many?" "8 last I heard. Mean-looking bunch, offering to split the bounty with anyone who joins." Samuel's eyes were shrewd beneath his bushy brows. They're tracking east. Following a blood trail, they say. Tahoe's hand moved unconsciously to his side where the bullet had grazed him. I'm heading to Willow Creek Settlement, Samuel continued. Decent folks there. Doctor too. He looked directly at Emily. Always need help at the boarding house. Widow woman runs it. Lost her husband to Apaches years back, but she's fair-minded. The implication was clear. An offer of sanctuary for her and Sarah at least. Thank you, Emily said carefully. But we have arrangements. Samuel nodded, not pressing. Offer stands. Thought you should know your options. He gestured to his wagon. Got coffee, sugar, ammunition if you need it. And news of your husband. Emily froze. Thomas. If that's his name. Preacher type. Talks fancy? He's in Tucson. Married again already. To a saloon girl with family money. Samuel's expression was apologetic. Thought you should know. In case you were still concerned about him coming back. That night, after trading with Samuel and sharing a meal around the fire, Emily sat with Tahoe at the canyon's edge. The trader had bedded down near his wagon, his gentle snores carrying in the still air. You should go with him, Tahoe said, breaking the long silence. Sarah would have good life in settlement. School maybe. Other children. Is that what you want? Emily asked, studying his profile in the moonlight. What I want not important. Safety is important. Emily reached over, taking his hand in hers. You asked for my heart once, she said softly. Now I give it freely. My choice is made. Tahoe turned to her, surprise and something deeper lighting his eyes. Dangerous choice. Perhaps, she acknowledged, but it's mine to make. Samuel departed at dawn, leaving behind extra supplies, including ammunition for Tahoe's pistol, and a hand-drawn map showing alternative routes east should they need to flee. His farewell carried the weight of a man who doubted he would see them again. God keep you safe, he said, clasping Emily's hand. To Tahoe, he offered a weather-worn stick marked with notches and symbols, an Apache calendar. Monsoon season coming early this year, the old trader explained. Canyon might flood. Watch for signs. Tahoe accepted the calendar with a nod of respect. After Samuel's wagon disappeared from view, he studied the markings intently. He reads weather well, Tahoe acknowledged. 2 weeks, maybe less, before big rains. The warning lent urgency to their preparations. Their shelter needed reinforcement against both weather and potential attackers. From dawn until dusk, they worked to strengthen their home, deepening the drainage channels around the dwelling, reinforcing the roof with layers of pine branches and clay, creating storage spaces for their food that would remain dry even in flooding. Tahoe, still weakened from his wound but improving daily, constructed a hidden back exit through a narrow crevice in the canyon wall. If men come, he instructed Emily, take Sarah through here. Follow creek bed east. Emily studied the escape route, committing each turn to memory. And you, I stay. Led them away from you if needed. She started to protest, but the determined set of his jaw stopped her. Instead, she squeezed his hand, a gesture that had come to mean more than words between them. Sarah absorbed the tension around her with a child's intuitive understanding. She asked fewer questions, stayed closer to the shelter, and practiced moving silently as Tahoe taught her. Yet moments of joy still punctuated their days. Sarah's delighted laughter when Tahoe showed her how to make a whistle from a reed, Emily's smile when they successfully baked bread in the stone oven they'd built together. One evening, as clouds gathered on the western horizon, they sat around the fire sharing the last of Samuel's coffee. Sarah had fallen asleep early, exhausted from helping Emily store dried foods in the new clay pots they'd made. In Boston, Emily said softly, I had a piano. My father taught me to play when I was Sarah's age. I thought music was essential to happiness then. She looked around their simple dwelling, at the child sleeping peacefully, at the man beside her whose presence had come to mean safety. "I've never been more content than here with so much less." Tahoe was silent a moment, then reached into his pack and withdrew something wrapped in soft hide. "Made this," he said, offering the bundle to her. "For Sarah." Emily unwrapped the package to reveal a small flute carved from cedar, decorated with delicate patterns burned into the wood. "It's beautiful," she whispered, running her fingers over the smooth surface. "Music's still important," Tahoe said, "even in hard times, maybe especially then." The next morning broke with oppressive humidity, the air heavy and still. Tahoe studied the western sky where dark clouds had gathered overnight, then checked the calendar stick. "Storm coming faster than Samuel thought," he said grimly. "Need to secure everything today." They worked frantically, moving their most essential possessions to higher ground within the canyon, reinforcing the shelter's walls with additional stones, creating barriers to divert potential floodwaters. By midday, the sky had darkened to an ominous purple-gray, and distant thunder rumbled through the canyon walls. "Will it be very bad?" Emily asked as they made final preparations. "Bad," Tahoe confirmed. "But we are ready." As if summoned by his words, the first fat raindrops began to fall, striking the dusty ground with audible taps. Within minutes, the gentle patter transformed into a torrent, water streaming down the canyon walls in silver ribbons. Sarah watched with wide eyes from the doorway. "It's like the ocean falling from the sky." "Inside now," Emily urged, but Tahoe had gone suddenly still, his head tilted as if listening for something beneath the storm's growing roar. "Not just rain," he said, his voice tight. "Listen." Emily strained her ears, at first hearing nothing but the downpour and thunder. Then she caught it, a rhythmic sound separate from the storm's chaos. "Hoofbeats." "How many?" she whispered. "4, maybe 5 riders." Tahoe's expression hardened as he reached for his pistol. Moving fast despite rain. Could it be travelers seeking shelter from the storm? Emily asked, though she already knew the answer. Tahoe shook his head. "No one travels in this weather unless hunting something important." His eyes met hers. "Get Sarah. Be ready to run if I signal." As Emily rushed to prepare her daughter, Tahoe stood in the doorway watching the canyon entrance, the storm's fury gathering around him like a living thing. The riders appeared through the curtain of rain like specters. 4 men on lathered horses, water streaming from wide-brimmed hats and slickers. They moved with purpose despite the treacherous conditions, rifles carried, ready across their saddles. At their lead rode a tall figure whose very posture conveyed authority. Back straight as a ramrod, eyes scanning the canyon with methodical precision. "Inside," Tahoe ordered, pushing Emily toward the shelter. "Back exit. Now. We can't leave you." "Go," he insisted, checking his pistol. "I follow soon." Emily hesitated only a moment before gathering Sarah and their emergency pack. The child, sensing the gravity of the situation, remained silent as they slipped through the hidden crevice Tahoe had prepared at the rear of their dwelling. Once they were safely away, Tahoe positioned himself behind a boulder near the canyon entrance, watching as the riders approached the shelter. 3 were clearly hired guns, rough men with weathered faces and nervous eyes. But the 4th, their leader, was different. He dismounted with fluid grace, studying the ground despite the rain washing away tracks. "Someone's been here recently," the man called to his companions. "Fire's still warm." His voice carried the cultivated tones of education beneath a southwestern drawl. "Could be trappers," one of the others suggested half-heartedly. The leader shook his head, removing a folded paper from inside his coat. Even from a distance, Tahoe recognized a wanted poster with what must be a crude drawing of himself. His hand tightened on his pistol. "The Apache comes this way," the leader stated with certainty. "Wounded, traveling with a woman and child according to that old trader." Tahoe's blood ran cold. Samuel had betrayed them after all. Check the area, the leader ordered. Carson, Phillips, search that shelter. Dobbs, secure the horses. As two men approached the dwelling, Tahoe weighed his options. For against one, with Emily and Sarah's safety at stake, he couldn't risk a confrontation here, not with the storm intensifying and night approaching. Better to lead them away, create distance between these hunters and his family. He was about to slip away when the plan collapsed. Sarah's small cloth doll lay in plain sight near the fire pit, already being retrieved by one of the men. "Sir, there's a child's toy here. They can't be far." The leader's head snapped up. "Find them, now." With no choice left, Tahoe emerged from his hiding place, pistol trained on the leader. "Looking for me?" he said, his voice carrying over the rain. The men spun toward him, rifles rising, but their leader raised a hand, stopping them. "Hold your fire." He studied Tahoe with cold precision. "You'd be the Apache they call Joe." "Who asks?" "Nathaniel Reed, licensed bounty hunter." The man's tone was almost cordial, as if they were meeting at a social gathering rather than in a rainstorm with weapons drawn. "You've caused quite a stir, killing those 3 men at Coyote Creek." "Deserters," Tahoe replied. "Hunting Apaches for scalps." Reed shrugged. "Perhaps. The law doesn't much care about their character, only that they're dead. And there's $500 on your head, dead or alive." "Others have tried to collect," Tahoe said evenly. "They failed. Others weren't me." Reed's confidence wasn't bravado but the calm assurance of experience. He glanced around the canyon. "Where's the woman and child the old trader mentioned?" Tahoe remained silent. "No matter. We'll find them." Reed took a step forward. "I'm not unsympathetic to your situation. Turn yourself in peacefully, and I give you my word they won't be harmed." "Your word worth nothing to me." A flicker of something, perhaps genuine regret, crossed Reed's face. "I understand your distrust, but consider their welfare. This storm is worsening. Flash floods will sweep through these canyons by nightfall. A woman and child alone won't survive." As if confirming his words, a distant roaring sound echoed down the canyon, the unmistakable warning of floodwaters gathering force in the highlands. "Surrender now," Reed continued, "and I'll help find them before the flood comes. Otherwise—" He let the implication hang in the rain-soaked air. Before Tahoe could respond, a scream pierced the storm's tumult. Sarah's voice, high with terror. Both men's heads snapped toward the sound. "Sarah!" Emily's panicked cry followed. Without hesitation, Tahoe broke cover, racing toward their voices with Reed close behind. They rounded a bend to find Emily struggling to pull Sarah from a mudslide that had already claimed her to the waist, the rushing earth threatening to drag her into the rising waters below. Tahoe dropped his pistol, lunging toward the child. Reed, reacting with similar instinct, did the same. Together, they dug through the mud, anchoring themselves against the slipping earth as they worked to free the trapped girl. "Got her!" Reed shouted as his hands found Sarah's shoulders. With Tahoe bracing him from behind, he pulled the child free just as another section of canyon wall collapsed. Emily gathered her mud-covered daughter into her arms, sobbing with relief. Tahoe moved protectively in front of them, acutely aware of his discarded weapon now buried in the slide. Reed retrieved his own pistol, pointing it steadily at Tahoe. "That changes nothing," he said, though his voice lacked its former certainty. "You're still coming with me." "No!" Sarah cried, breaking from her mother's embrace to stand between Tahoe and the bounty hunter. "He's our family now. You can't take him." Reed's expression registered genuine surprise. "Your family?" Dawn broke over a changed landscape. The storm had receded, leaving behind a canyon transformed, pools of standing water where desert had been, uprooted trees creating natural dams, newly carved channels running with residual flow. Their shelter had survived, though damaged, a testament to Tahoe's careful construction. Inside, Emily tended to Sarah, who had escaped the mudslide with nothing worse than scrapes and bruises. Outside, Reed's men secured the horses while Reed himself kept vigilant watch over Tahoe, who sat with wrists bound by iron manacles, a bounty hunter's tools of trade. "Fort Deliverance is 4 days' ride," Reed announced, entering the shelter. "We leave when the ground firms enough for safe passage." Emily looked up from combing mud from Sarah's hair. "You're taking all of us? The bounty is only for him." Reed's expression remained professional, detached. "The woman and child traveling with a renegade Apache are persons of interest to the Army. They'll want statements at minimum." "We've done nothing wrong," Emily protested. "That's for the fort commander to decide." Reed's tone softened slightly. "For what it's worth, I've included in my report that you helped save my man Phillips when the flash flood hit his position. That should count in your favor." After Reed stepped outside, Emily moved to Tahoe's side. "I won't let them hang you," she whispered fiercely. "I'll tell them everything, how you saved us, how those deserters attacked first." Tahoe's eyes, calm despite their situation, met hers. "Army not interested in Apache side of story." He nodded toward Sarah. "Focus on her now. Keep her safe." By midday they were underway, Tahoe riding double with Phillips, his hands chained to the saddle horn. Emily and Sarah shared a horse, while Reed led the way with Dobbs and Carson flanking them. The bounty hunter set a deliberate pace, avoiding washed-out areas and monitoring the sky for signs of further storms. Emily studied their captors with growing understanding. Phillips, a youngish man with nervous hands, clearly followed Reed out of some personal debt or loyalty. Dobbs was a mercenary, interested only in his share of the bounty. Carson, the oldest of the three, was a professional like Reed, calculating odds, conserving energy, watching for opportunities. Reed himself remained an enigma, educated, methodical, neither cruel nor kind. He treated Tahoe with the dispassionate attention one might give a valuable but dangerous animal. Yet he had risked himself to save Sarah, and now ensured the child received extra water and the most comfortable position possible on the difficult ride. That night, they camped in a small clearing beside a wash. Reed insisted on continuing Tahoe's chains, but allowed Emily to tend to his raw wrists, applying a salve she'd brought from their dwelling. "Why are you doing this?" she asked Reed when the others were occupied with camp duties. "You're clearly no ordinary bounty hunter. Your speech, your manner." Reed paused in cleaning his pistol, considering her question. "You're observant, Mrs. Blackwood." "Emily Blackwood. Mrs. Blackwood. I hunt men because I'm good at it. Before the war, I practiced law in Virginia. After, there wasn't much left of my world, but the skills remained. Tracking, reading people, understanding evidence." "And what evidence brought you after Tahoe?" A shadow crossed Reed's face. "2 witnesses swearing an Apache massacred their companions. A blood trail. Reports of a rogue warrior living with a white woman and child." His eyes narrowed. "Though I'm beginning to suspect the witnesses omitted certain details." "They attacked us," Emily stated firmly. "They'd been hunting Apaches for bounties, and Tahoe defended us." Reed nodded slowly. "So he's claimed." Sarah approached then, having escaped Carson's watchful eye. She stood before Reed without fear, her small face solemn in the firelight. "My mama never lies," she said with a child's simple certainty. "And Tahoe protects us. He made me a flute and taught me about plants and built our house when we had nothing." Reed studied the child with genuine curiosity. "You're not afraid of him? Most white children fear Apaches." Sarah shook her head. "Tahoe is family," she replied, as if this explained everything. Something shifted in Reed's expression, not softening exactly, but recalculation. "It's late, little one. You should rest." The next morning, they continued their journey through terrain growing increasingly difficult. Flash floods had rendered normal trails impassable, forcing them onto higher, more exposed routes. Tahoe, despite his bound hands, repeatedly pointed out safer passages that Reed, after careful consideration, often followed. By afternoon, Emily noticed Reed watching Tahoe with growing puzzlement, as if the Apache's behavior contradicted expectations. When they stopped to water the horses, Reed approached Tahoe directly. "You could have escaped during the night," he said quietly. "The lock on those manacles is simple. A man with your skills could have picked it easily." Tahoe's gaze flicked to Emily and Sarah, then back to Reed. "They come with me," he said simply. "Or I stay." Reed's brow furrowed. "You'd surrender your freedom for them?" Tahoe met his eyes steadily. "Some chains you choose." That evening, as they made camp beneath a towering mesa, distant thunder rolled once more across the sky. The second storm arrived with greater fury than the first. Black clouds rolled across the sky like smoke from a massive fire, turning day to premature night. Lightning branched across the darkness, illuminating the landscape in stark, white flashes. "We need shelter," Reed called over the rising wind. "This mesa won't protect us." Tahoe, who had been scanning the terrain with increasing urgency, nodded toward a dark opening in the cliff face 100 yards ahead. "Cave there, big enough for all." Reed signaled his men to make for the cave, but as they urged their horses forward, the first torrential sheets of rain hit like a wall of water. The ground, already saturated from the previous storm, quickly turned treacherous. Carson's horse lost footing on the slick earth, going down hard and throwing its rider into a rapidly forming rivulet of muddy water. "Help him," Reed ordered Phillips, who dismounted to assist the fallen man. They had nearly reached the cave entrance when a sound rose above even the storm's roar, a deep, rushing rumble that seemed to shake the very ground beneath them. Tahoe recognized it instantly. Flash flood. Higher ground. Now! Reed reacted without hesitation, abandoning their path to the cave and spurring his horse up a narrow game trail that climbed the mesa's face. The others followed, all except Phillips and Carson, who were cut off by a sudden surge of water rounding the cliff base. "We have to help them," Emily cried, but Reed caught her horse's bridle. Too late. "Look!" A wall of water 6 feet high charged down the canyon, carrying uprooted trees and boulders in its churning mass. Phillips managed to scramble up an outcropping, dragging the injured Carson with him, but their position looked precarious at best as water continued to rise. Safely above the flood's reach, they watched in horror as the torrent devoured everything in its path. The cave Tahoe had identified remained dry, its entrance just above the water's hungry reach, but now impossible to access from their position. "Your men are trapped," Tahoe said to Reed, raising his voice above the storm. Water still rising. Reed assessed the situation with grim calculation. "They can't hold that position long. Carson's hurt, and that ledge is crumbling." "I can reach them," Tahoe stated. "From here." He nodded toward a narrow spine of rock that extended partway across the canyon. "Need hands free." Reed hesitated only briefly before producing a key and unlocking the manacles. "Carson saved my life at Shiloh," he said simply. "I won't leave him." "I'm coming too," Emily insisted, already dismounting. "No," both men said simultaneously. "Sarah needs you," Tahoe added softly. "Stay." The child clung to her mother, eyes wide with fear as Tahoe and Reed made their way along the treacherous ridge. The rock was slick with rain, and twice Tahoe had to catch Reed when the bounty hunter's footing failed. They reached the end of the natural bridge, still 20 feet short of the stranded. "Men, can't jump it," Reed shouted over the storm's fury. Tahoe pointed to a fallen pine being carried in the flood below, its course bringing it near the trapped men. "Tree coming. Tell them to jump for it when close. We catch downstream." Reed nodded in understanding and signaled his men. Phillips saw the plan and acknowledged, positioning himself to help Carson. When the massive trunk swept near their perch, Phillips half-carried, half-pushed Carson onto it, then leapt after him. The current immediately seized the tree, spinning it in the churning waters. Tahoe and Reed raced back along the ridge and down to a point where the canyon widened, the waters slowing and spreading. As the tree approached, Tahoe plunged into the flood without hesitation, powerful strokes carrying him to the makeshift raft. Reed followed, and together they guided the tree toward a submerged shelf where they could gain footing. Emily, watching from above with Sarah clutched tightly to her chest, saw the moment when disaster struck. The tree snagged on a hidden obstacle, its sudden stop throwing Carson into the water. Tahoe dived after him, disappearing beneath the muddy surface. Long seconds passed before Tahoe resurfaced, dragging the unconscious man toward where Reed and Phillips had managed to reach a gravelly bank. Together, they pulled Carson from the water, but it was Tahoe who immediately began pressing on the man's chest and breathing into his mouth, a technique Emily had never witnessed. After tense moments, Carson coughed violently, expelling water as Reed turned him onto his side. By the time Emily and Sarah had carefully made their way down to join them, the men had taken refuge in a shallow overhang. Carson lay wrapped in the driest blanket they could find, his breathing labored but stable. Tahoe, exhausted from the rescue, sat with his back against the rock wall, eyes closed. Reed knelt beside the Apache, offering a water skin. "You saved him," he said, his professional detachment cracking slightly. "Why?" Tahoe accepted a small sip before answering. "Man drowning is not enemy, just man drowning." Reed studied him with new eyes. "I've spent 15 years believing all Apaches were devils. Perhaps I've been hunting the wrong men." Morning revealed the storm's full devastation. Their horses had bolted during the night, leaving them stranded in a landscape rendered alien by mud and debris. The flood had receded, leaving behind a tangled graveyard of trees, stones, and the occasional carcass of an unfortunate animal. Carson's condition had worsened overnight, his breathing shallow, a fever building. Tahoe examined him with practiced hands, his expression grave. "Broken ribs, water in lungs, needs medicine soon." Reed knelt beside his injured companion. The fort's still 2 days away on foot, across washed-out terrain. "He won't live 2 days, Tahoe stated flatly. "Needs certain plants. Some grow nearby others." He gestured toward distant hills. Reed's jaw tightened with decision. "Phillips, stay with Carson and the woman and child. Keep him comfortable." He checked his pistol and compass. "The Apache and I will find what's needed." "You're letting him go?" Phillips asked incredulously. "He could have escaped a dozen times already," Reed replied. "He hasn't." As they prepared to depart, Emily approached Tahoe. "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "We could leave now, the three of us." Tahoe's eyes softened as he looked at her. "Man dying can help. After everything they've done, the chains, dragging us from our home, what they do not change what I do." He touched her cheek briefly. "Keep Sarah safe. Return soon." Reed watched this exchange with unreadable eyes. Once Tahoe had gathered what supplies he could salvage, the two men set out, following a game trail that wound up into the foothills. They made an incongruous pair, the former Confederate officer and the Apache warrior, bound not by trust but by necessity. They traveled in silence for the first hour, each man conserving energy for the difficult terrain. It was Reed who finally broke the quiet. "You were a medicine man before you were a warrior." "Not a question." Tahoe nodded once. "Learned from grandfather. Chose warrior path later." "Why?" "Young man's pride. Wanted glory, not wisdom." A bitter smile touched his lips. "Found neither." They pushed deeper into the hills, Tahoe stopping occasionally to harvest plants. A red-flowered succulent here, the bark of a particular tree there. Reed observed with genuine curiosity. That woman back there, Reed said as they paused to rest. She looks at you like you're her salvation. The child, too. Found them dying. Helped them live. Simple. Nothing simple about an Apache warrior adopting a white woman and her child in Apache territory. Reed studied him. Your people would kill you for it. Mine would hang you regardless. Tahoe met his gaze steadily. Some things worth dying for. As afternoon waned, they reached a high meadow where Tahoe harvested a crucial white flowering plant. Their return journey would have been straightforward had they not spotted the riders. 7 men, Reed said, studying the distant figures through a small spyglass. Armed, moving fast along our back trail. The deserters' friends, Tahoe surmised. Hunting party Samuel warned of. Reed nodded grimly. They'll find the others by nightfall. He tucked the spyglass away. We need to reach them first. They pushed themselves to the limit, taking dangerous shortcuts down rocky slopes, wading through still-swollen streams. As dusk gathered, they spotted smoke from Philip's small fire, foolishly lit despite the danger, a beacon to anyone within miles. Too late, Tahoe said, pointing to movement in the brush below their position, already surrounding them. Reed assessed the situation with a strategist's eye. 4 against 7. Bad odds. 3, Tahoe corrected. Carson cannot fight. 4, Reed insisted. Mrs. Blackwood struck me as a woman who would defend her child with considerable determination. For the first time, a genuine smile crossed Tahoe's face. 5 then. Sarah throws stones with good aim. The unexpected humor created a momentary bond between them. 2 experienced fighters facing a common enemy. Reed checked his ammunition, a pistol with 5 bullets and a knife. Tahoe had only the knife Reed had permitted him to carry for gathering plants. We need a plan, Reed said. Those men aren't bounty hunters or lawmen. They're killers looking for revenge and Apache scalps. They won't take prisoners. Tahoe studied the terrain, the positioning of the approaching men, the limited cover available to Emily and the others. I go to them, he said finally. Draw hunters away. You circle behind. Protect your men and my family. That's suicide, Reed objected. Maybe. Tahoe's expression was serene, accepting. Or maybe hunters become hunted. Reed considered him for a long moment. You truly believe they're worth dying for? People who aren't even your kind. Tahoe's hand went to the turquoise pendant, his talisman against despair. What is my kind? Those who would kill children for being born to wrong parents? Or those who would die protecting any child? He rose, decision made. My kind is down there, waiting for me to come home. Before Reed could respond, Emily's scream tore through the gathering darkness. They descended the slope in different directions, Reed moving to flank the hunters, Tahoe heading straight toward Emily's scream. The Apache moved like a shadow through the gathering darkness, his footfalls silent despite the urgency driving him. The scene that greeted him was worse than feared. 2 rough-looking men had dragged Emily from the shelter, while others held Phillips at gunpoint. Sarah clung to Carson's unconscious form, her small body shielding him as one of the hunters prodded them with a rifle barrel. Where's the Apache? Demanded a burly man with a scarred face, clearly the leader. He twisted Emily's arm behind her back, drawing another cry of pain. Tell us or I start breaking things. I don't know, Emily gasped. He's gone. Left us after the flood. The man struck her across the face. Liar. Tracker says he was here hours ago. Tahoe had seen enough. He stepped into the clearing, hands empty at his sides. Looking for me, he said, his voice carrying in the still air. The hunters spun toward him, rifles raising. Their leader grinned, revealing tobacco-stained teeth. Well now, the famous Apache who killed my brother and his friends. He shoved Emily roughly aside. Didn't expect you to make it this easy. Let them go, Tahoe said evenly. Your quarrel with me. The scarred man laughed. My quarrels with all Apache devils and anyone who helps them. He gestured to his men. Tie him. We'll do this proper. Take our time. 2 hunters moved toward Tahoe, rope ready. He allowed them to approach, his gaze fixed on Emily and Sarah. Close eyes, he said softly in Apache. Do not watch. Just as the men reached him, a shot cracked through the twilight. One of the hunters at the perimeter fell, clutching his leg. Reed's voice called from the darkness. The next shot goes through someone's heart. Drop your weapons. Confusion erupted as the hunters scrambled for cover, unsure where the shot had come from or how many attackers they faced. Their leader grabbed Emily as a shield, pressing a knife to her throat. Show yourself or she dies. Reed emerged from the shadows, his pistol trained on the scarred man. I am Nathaniel Reed, licensed bounty hunter. That Apache is my prisoner, and these people are under my protection. You're outnumbering us 5-2, the leader sneered. And you're protecting an Apache? What kind of white man are you? The kind who follows the law, Reed replied calmly. The Apache will face justice at Fort Deliverance, not frontier vengeance. While attention focused on Reed, Tahoe had moved incrementally closer to Sarah. Now, with a barely perceptible nod to the child, he watched her slip something from her pocket, the small stone whistle he had made her, which she raised to her lips and blew. The piercing sound startled the hunters momentarily, just long enough for Tahoe to lunge forward, tackling the man threatening Sarah while Reed fired again, wounding another of the gang. Phillips, seizing the opportunity, grabbed a fallen rifle and joined the fight. In the chaos, Emily broke free from her captor, delivering a sharp elbow to his stomach before scrambling toward her daughter. The scarred leader recovered quickly, raising his pistol toward Tahoe's back. No! Emily cried, throwing herself into the man's aim. The shot never came. Reed's bullet found the leader's shoulder, spinning him around as Tahoe subdued the last standing hunter with a swift blow. Silence descended on the clearing, broken only by the moans of the wounded men and Sarah's quiet sobbing as Emily clutched her close. Reed surveyed the scene with professional detachment. Phillips, secure the prisoners. Use their own rope. As the immediate danger passed, Tahoe knelt beside Carson, administering the medicine he'd collected. The man's breathing eased slightly under his care. Only then did Tahoe move to Emily and Sarah, checking them for injuries with gentle hands. You came back, Emily whispered, touching his face as if to confirm he was real. Always come back, Tahoe replied simply. Later, with the hunters bound and their wounded tended, Tahoe applying his medicine to friend and foe alike, Reed sat apart, writing in a small leather journal. Emily approached cautiously, Sarah asleep in her arms. What happens now? She asked. Reed didn't look up from his writing. We continue to Fort Deliverance when Carson can travel. These men will face charges for assault. And Tahoe? Now Reed met her gaze. The Apache still has a bounty on his head. His name is Tahoe, Emily said firmly, and he just helped save your men, after already saving Carson's life. Reed's expression remained unreadable as he returned to his journal. Emily started to turn away when he spoke again. My wife and daughter were killed by Apaches in '66, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. I was away hunting bounties to support them. Came home to find. He closed the journal. I spent years tracking and capturing every Apache I could find, telling myself it was justice. Never occurred to me there might be good men among them. He looked to where Tahoe sat keeping watch, his profile still and vigilant against the night sky. A man should be judged by his actions, not his blood. That's what I believed before the war changed everything. It's not too late to believe it again, Emily suggested quietly. Reed didn't respond, but when she left, he opened his journal once more, staring at a faded pencil sketch of a woman and child, faces long lost but never forgotten. 3 days passed before Carson could travel. During this time, an uneasy truce held between the various factions: Reed and his men, Tahoe and his adopted family, and the sullen hunters bound under guard. Tahoe's medicines worked slowly but effectively, drawing infection from Carson's lungs while reducing his fever. On the morning of the 4th day, Reed called Tahoe aside as Emily prepared a simple breakfast. "I've been considering our situation," the bounty hunter said without preamble. "Fort Deliverance is still a day's journey. Carson needs proper medical attention, and these prisoners require secure transport." Tahoe waited, sensing there was more. Reed withdrew a folded paper from his coat, the wanted poster with Tahoe's crude likeness. "According to this, I'm hunting a renegade Apache responsible for killing 3 men at Coyote Creek." He studied the paper thoughtfully. "The description is vague. Could match any number of men." "What are you saying?" Tahoe asked carefully. "I'm saying that perhaps the Apache I'm hunting went down in the flood. Body never recovered." Reed met his eyes directly. "Would simplify matters considerably." Before Tahoe could respond, one of the bound hunters spat on the ground. "You'd let an Apache murderer go free? After what his kind did to your family?" Reed turned slowly. "You know nothing about my family." His voice was soft but carried a dangerous edge. "And you know nothing about this man." "I know he killed my brother." "Your brother was taking Apache scalps for bounty money," Reed replied. The army confirmed it after questioning the 2 survivors. They found a collection in his saddlebags, including those of women and children. The man fell silent, hatred still burning in his eyes, but tempered now with uncertainty. Reed turned back to Tahoe. "My men and I will take these prisoners to the fort. Phillips has family in Willow Creek Settlement. We'll stop there first for Carson to see the doctor." "And us?" Emily asked, having approached quietly during the conversation. Reed considered her, then Sarah, who watched wide-eyed from beside the fire. "That's for you to decide, Mrs. Blackwood. The settlement offers safety, community. Your daughter could attend school." Emily's hand found Tahoe's, fingers intertwining naturally. "We had a home," she said simply. Reed nodded in understanding. "The canyon." He hesitated, then added, "If that's your decision, you should know the army has withdrawn from this region following new treaties. The bounties have been rescinded as part of the peace process." Hope flickered in Emily's eyes. "We could go back? Live there safely?" "As safely as anyone lives in these territories," Reed qualified. "Though your arrangement may raise eyebrows should others discover it." "Let them raise," Emily replied with quiet determination. That afternoon, they parted ways at a fork in the trail, Reed and his men with their prisoners continuing toward Fort Deliverance, while Tahoe, Emily, and Sarah turned west toward their canyon home. Reed had provided them with a horse and basic supplies salvaged from the hunter's gear. As they prepared to separate, Reed approached Tahoe one final time, extending his hand. After a moment's hesitation, Tahoe clasped it. "The world is changing," Reed said. "Slowly, imperfectly, but changing nonetheless. Perhaps it's time men like us changed with it." "What will you do now?" Emily asked. "Continue bounty hunting?" Reed glanced at his journal where it rested in his saddlebag, the sketch of his family hidden within its pages. "I've been considering returning to the law. There's need for a circuit judge in these territories, someone who sees justice as more than vengeance." Sarah, who had been unusually quiet throughout the preparations, suddenly stepped forward and handed Reed a small white flag she'd fashioned from a stick and a scrap of cloth. "Tahoe says white flags mean no more fighting," she explained solemnly. "You should have one too." Reed accepted the simple gift with matching gravity. "Thank you, Miss Sarah. I'll keep it as a reminder." The journey back to the canyon took 3 days, their pace measured to accommodate recovery from injuries and fatigue. As they traveled, they witnessed the land already beginning to heal from the storms, new shoots of green emerging from mud-covered ground, wildlife returning to restored water sources. When they finally crested the ridge overlooking their hidden home, the sight below nearly stopped their hearts. The canyon remained, but their dwelling had been half demolished by the floods. The carefully built walls collapsed, the roof gone entirely. "Everything ruined," Tahoe said quietly. Emily surveyed the destruction, then looked at Tahoe and Sarah, the family she had never expected to find in the wilderness. "Not everything," she replied. "Not what matters most." Sarah slipped her small hand into Tahoe's calloused one. "We can build it again. Better this time." Tahoe looked down at the child, then at Emily. The ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Yes," he agreed. "Better this time." Autumn painted the canyon in amber and gold as they completed the new dwelling. Unlike their first hasty shelter, this home reflected deliberate craft. Stone walls reinforced against future floods. A proper wooden door with iron hinges traded from Samuel. Windows covered with oiled parchment that admitted soft light. Inside, they'd created separate sleeping areas divided by woven screens, storage spaces for their growing provisions, and at the center the hearth larger and more efficient than before. Their life had found a new rhythm in the months since the storms. Tahoe still hunted and trapped, but now also tended a small garden where Emily had planted seeds from Samuel's stores. Sarah divided her time between helping with chores and the lessons Emily insisted upon, using charcoal to practice letters on smooth stone tablets. The transformation extended beyond their physical surroundings. Tahoe spoke more frequently now, his English improving through daily conversations. Emily had abandoned the last vestiges of her Boston propriety, moving with the confident grace of a woman who could snare rabbits and preserve meat for winter. Sarah, once painfully shy around strangers, now chattered freely, mixing English and Apache phrases in a language uniquely her own. Samuel visited twice during the rebuilding, bringing news, supplies, and once, unexpectedly, a letter. "From Reed," the trader explained, handing the sealed paper to Emily. "Asked me to deliver it personal-like." The letter contained formal language befitting Reed's legal background, informing them that he had indeed become a circuit judge for the territory. More significantly, he had filed paperwork establishing Emily as a widow homesteading legally on territorial land, with the canyon's coordinates registered under her name. "He's protected us," Emily marveled, reading the letter aloud to Tahoe. "Made this place officially ours." Tahoe nodded thoughtfully. "Good man." Found his way back to himself. On a crisp morning, as the first frost silvered the canyon walls, Samuel arrived for his winter visit before heading south for the cold months. He brought special cargo this time, a small iron stove for heating, winter clothing, books for Sarah, and news of the wider world. "Armies keeping to the treaties, mostly," he reported as they shared coffee around the fire. "Settlements expanding, though. Railroad survey teams mapping routes through the territory." "Will they come here?" Emily asked, concern creasing her brow. Samuel shook his head. "Canyon's well off any practical route. You're safe enough for years to come." He hesitated, then added, "Judge Reed sends his regards. Says the legal papers are all filed and recognized. This land is yours proper now, Emily." Tahoe and Emily exchanged glances. "Ours," she corrected gently. Samuel nodded, understanding the unspoken reality of their arrangement. From his wagon, he produced one final item, a hand-woven blanket of extraordinary craftsmanship, its design incorporating both Apache and European patterns. "Wedding gift," he said with a twinkle in his rheumy eyes. "From the Navajo woman who shares my winters. She says every proper home needs one, regardless of who says the words." Emily accepted the blanket with tears in her eyes while Tahoe looked on with rare, unguarded emotion. Sarah danced around them, delighted by the colors and the recognition of what they had all known but never formally acknowledged. That night, after Samuel had departed and Sarah slept soundly, Tahoe and Emily sat beneath the stars, the wedding blanket wrapped around their shoulders against the autumn chill. Never thought to have family again, Tahoe said quietly. After banishment, thought that part of life finished. Emily leaned against him, her head finding the familiar hollow of his shoulder. I thought the same after Thomas abandoned us, that Sarah and I would die alone in the desert. She looked up at the vast canopy of stars. Strange how fate works. Not fate, Tahoe said, his hand finding hers beneath the blanket. Choice. Everyday choice. They sat in comfortable silence until Tahoe spoke again, his voice carrying a ceremonial quality. Apache wedding has no priest, no papers. Man and woman declare themselves before witnesses. Family, stars, spirits of ancestors. Emily turned to face him, understanding his intent. And what do they declare? That they walk together, that they are shelter for each other in storm, water in drought, warmth in cold. His dark eyes reflected starlight as he placed his hand over her heart, echoing their first meeting. That they give their hearts freely, for all days that remain. Emily covered his hand with her own. I give my heart, she whispered. And I give mine, he replied. When Sarah found them asleep by the fire at dawn, curled together beneath the wedding blanket, she simply smiled and tucked herself against them, completing the circle. In the spring, when wildflowers carpeted the canyon floor, the Apache warrior who had once been called Many Horses knelt before his daughter and placed a small turquoise pendant around her neck, the one his nephew had pressed into his palm on the day of his banishment. For protection, he told her. And remembering. Remembering what? Sarah asked, touching the stone with reverent fingers. Tahoe looked to where Emily worked in their garden, her face tilted toward the sun, then back to the child who had become truly his own. That sometimes, he said softly, when we lose everything, we find what we truly need.